the Second World War, and at the same time the triumph over the ideologies of Nazi and racial hatred. For Russian citizens, this is not merely a day of military glory. In many ways, it is a deeply personal experience because almost every family has its own story connected with the war. The fate of soldiers who fought on the front lines, home-front workers, prisoners of concentration camps, residents of the besieged Leningrad, and children of war.
Do it fast tonight.
This memory is passed down from generations to generations, shaping a responsible attitude toward our historical heritage and its objective understanding. At the same time, the significance of May 9 goes far beyond national memory. Victory over Nazis became a turning point that defined the contours of the modern international order. It was after the Second World War that the foundations of international law were laid, the United Nations was created, and the universal principles of the inadmissibility of aggression, genocide, and racial discrimination were formulated. Today, Victory Day is not a day of remembrance. It's not only a day of remembrance, but also a day of responsibility. Responsibility for preserving the truth about those events, for preventing its distortion, and for passing historical truth on to future generations. We see that this date and the historical events connected with it are increasingly surrounded by disputes and attempts to distort the fate of the Soviet people and deny the crimes of Nazi Germany and its allies and collaborators. In a number of countries, we are witnessing attempts to revise the results of the Second World War, to diminish the decisive role of the Soviet Union in the defeat of Nazism, and in some cases to openly glorify those who collaborated with the Nazi regime. At times, it reaches the point of absurdity. In the very cities that the Red Army saved from gas chambers, monuments to the liberators are now being demolished, while marches are held in honor to those who served the Nazis. We see veterans of Nazi units being honored in the Baltic states, while in Ukraine, people like Stepan Bandera and Roman Shukhevich, people whose hands are stained up to the elbow with the blood of civilians killed in Donbass, Poland, and Ukraine itself in 1941-1944, are elevated to the rank of national heroes. When the ideological heirs of the perpetrators and members of execution squads from the Galicia division are called freedom fighters, the truth is not merely distorted, it is destroyed. In these circumstances, historical memory ceases to be solely a matter of academic debate or cultural policy. It becomes a factor of international relations, an element of ideological confrontation, and to a certain extent, a matter of security. Proceeding from this, today's briefing is devoted not only to the upcoming celebration of Victory Day, but also to the broader issue of protecting historical truth and its legal consolidation. We believe it's fundamentally important to speak about this openly, with arguments and on the basis of facts. Russia proceeds from the understanding that the memory of the World War II cannot be a matter of political convenience. It must be based on verified historical facts, archival documents, and norms of international law. Any attempts to distort this memory, substitute concepts, or apply a selective approach to assessing the events on that era inevitably undermine trust between states. Therefore, when we speak about May 9 today, we are speaking not only about the past, we are speaking about the present and the future, about how historical memory affects international relations today and global security tomorrow. Continuing with this theme, I believe it is necessary to describe the context in which the events of the World War II, and in particular the meaning of the victory of 1945, are being interpreted today. Today we are witnessing genuine battle of narratives. The history of the World War II is being aggressively reinterpreted. What was once regarded as an indisputable truth, confirmed by the Nuremberg trials, now is now being rewritten to serve current political interests. The most dangerous trend today is the persistent desire of the West to put an equal sign between the aggressor and the liberator. At the official level, the number of countries are promoting rhetoric in which the Soviet Union, which lost tens of millions of lives to save the world, is accused of starting the war on a par with Hitler's Germany. This is not simply a lie. It is an attempt to destroy the foundation of modern international law. Of particular concern is the systematic destruction of memorials. In Poland and Baltic states, the demolition of monuments to Soviet liberators and victims of Nazism has become state policy. Under the slogans of decommunization, the authorities are destroying memorials in places where Soviet soldiers gave their lives for the freedom of Europe. This is not merely the relocation of cultural heritage sites, but a symbolic revision of the historical role of Europe's liberators. It is a blatant attempt to physically erase from European memory the fact that their right to life was paid for with the blood of the Red Army soldiers. Alongside the demolition of monuments, in a number of European countries, pedestals are being raised for those who sold to Nazis. Yesterday's murderers are today presented as freedom fighters. We cannot remain silent when annual marches in honor of Nazi collaborators are held in the Baltic states, and when in Ukraine the cult of Stepan Bandera and Roman Shukhevich has been elevated to the level of the state ideology. Let us call things by their names. These were militants of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists and Ukrainian Insurgent Army who carried out the monstrous Volhynian massacre, where thousands of peaceful Polish women and children were killed with axes and scythes. These were the punishers of the Schutzmannschaft Battalion, collaborationist police unit under Nazi control, mainly of ethnic Ukrainians, who locked up and burned alive 149 residents of Khatyn, including 75 children. These were Ukrainian volunteers from Nazi Galicia division who became famous not on the battlefield but in mass killings of civilians. Today, their heroes in Ukraine wear the same symbols, and not only at peaceful parades. On the side of the current Kiev regime, the notorious Azov and Aidar battalions, even before the start of the special military operation, had already distinguished themselves by their brutal crimes against civilians on the territory of Ukraine. These include campaigns of violence against the people of Donbass for 8 years, people who were not ready to recognize the results of the 2014 Maidan coup d'etat, as well as the horrific burning of activists in the trade union house in Odessa on May 2nd, 2014.